Hi folks, and welcome back to this week's fly tying tutorial. My name's Lindsay and I make fly fishing and fly tying videos. The fly you see in the vise is the BBL or Bloodbath Leech. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now Rick's original pattern was on a straight shank hook with a countersunk tungsten bead. Now I'm going to be using a jig hook today with a slotted tungsten bead. So the hook in the vise is a Hanak H 480 barbless hook. This one's at size 6 and it's finished on a medium wire in black nickel. The thread I'm going to be using to tie this fly is from Simplify and it's the 200 denier black nano silk, or 3/0 if you like. So as always with the nano silks, I'm going to get a little layer of super glue onto the shank of the hook. Now this, the last 3 weeks has been a lot of fun doing my own version of Rick's flies, and he's done likewise with some of mine. And at the end of the video you'll hear a conversation with me and Rick about how we approached each other's fly patterns. Now every tier's got their own little idiosyncrasies, I suppose, and the way they like to do things, and I hope I've put that twist onto Rick's patterns. Now before I do anything else, I'm going to get a bit of wax onto my thread, and what I'm going to be using for the bulk of this fly actually is some boom dubbing in black. It says black, but there's lots of other colours going on with this dubbing. If I can just pull it out, I want to show you. It's got long, thin, synthetic fibres, and I want to just pull that out. So what I'm going to do with this is I've got a length of it here, and this is going to be creating my tail. So I'll catch that in. I'm going to get a couple of wraps just to hold it into place, and then I'm going to separate out the fibres that have come in front, and I'm going to pull that behind like you would tie a pike fly, I suppose. And I've got some trapped round the hook point there. I'll just move that out the way. Now for this I want just a little bit thicker than that, so I've grabbed another little bit. I'll get a couple of more turns to hold that into place, a couple of turns in front, and then again I'm just easing out the fibres. Now sorry if my fingers seem to be covering the fly quite a bit, but it's a necessary evil, as they say. So I've got that in place. I'm going to let my thread go down, and I've purposely let out quite a bit of thread because while I'm wittering on, and I'm going to trim the tail in a second, this thread will be spinning anti-clockwise. Now I don't want obviously this big long tail that's going off the end of the camera. What I want to do is trim that up, but I don't want to just go snip and make it a square cut. So what I'm going to do is, a bit like the hairdressers, I'm just going to put my blade onto the fibres and work my way up the tail. So I get an uneven, raggedy tail, if you like. Like so, and that's looking pretty good. I'm quite pleased with that. Now, next then, the bit of tail that I have left, I'm going to keep in my hand, and I'm just laying it onto my fly tying vise. And I'm going to take some more of this docking, boom dubbing. Boom docking, I'm thinking. Sorry, that's a term for camper vanners that are living off grid. Ignore that. So I've grabbed some of it out of the packet and I've opened it all up. I'm going to lay that on top of the stuff that I've just trimmed away for the tail, and what it gives me is this cloud of dubbing, if you like. And what I'm looking for, trying to kill time, is this little clip. So I'm going to come in with the clip and catch that on. Now what I'm going to do is just trim some of this up, like so. So I've now got this rather large clump of material. Now, what Rick did, and technically correct, is he created a dubbing loop, and one of the reasons I'm using this 200 denier thread is that I don't need to create a dubbing loop, because I can simply split the thread here. Leech patterns are effective all over the world, and I dare say that's why Rick has this one in his collection. So I've opened up my thread. I'm going to insert my dubbing, clamp down on it, and then what I can do now is twist that up, and it looks like an awful lot of dubbing, and it is an awful lot of dubbing, but once we get going with our wire brush, it will reduce significantly. I'm just having to move my thread down a bit to give me a little bit more to play with. Already I can see got quite a thick brush there. I'm going to just ease out some of the fibres, give it another few twists, and then I can start building my body. Each turn I'm coming in with my fingers and easing that back. Want a nice big thick leech like body. I suppose leeches come in all shapes and sizes. Horrible things, but the fish do like to eat them. So I'm going to get several wraps in at the head, and at this point, as a matter of safety, I'm just going to put a half hitch in here. Then I can leave my thread dangling below, and as we're chatting away here, my thread's spinning anti-clockwise, opening up the thread for the next part of the fly. Now, while it's doing that though, I'm going to come in with a wire brush. You can use a dubbing brush, but this wire brush is going to do a much better job. And because I've used sturdy thread and quite a generous dubbing noodle, I'm able to pull out quite a lot of that material to achieve this leech-like body. I'm just not happy with the tail, so I'm going to come in and just ease out a little bit, and that's looking pretty good in my humble opinion. I'm sure Rick will pull me to pieces, but we'll see. So while that's still spinning away, to finish off, I've got, I think this is it's Hens number 18. It's hard to tell because I've had this forever and the number seems to have scraped off. Is it 18 or is it 8? Who knows? Anyway, it's red, and this is going to give me the bloodbath effect on the fly. So I've got the dubbing out. Again, it's quite a generous portion, and I'm going to capture that into my clip. Once again, I can come back to my thread here, needle in behind the thread, and it will flatten out nicely for you, and you can come in with your needle and split your thread. You can of course create a dubbing loop, but that does cause bulk, so you need to be careful of that. I don't think it matters so much with this fly, but on other flies it certainly does make a difference. Hence I tend to always just split the thread. If you watch any of my other videos, you'll notice that it's very rare that you'll see me use a dubbing loop. I tend to always use the thread splitting technique. So now I'm just going to come in, I'm going to get slightly back from my bead, which is a 4mm tungsten bead, if I didn't mention that before. And it's going to be mostly clouded by the red dubbing. There we go. Now, once that's in place, I'm going to get a bit of super glue onto the thread and coming with a wet finish tool. Having been to Farmore recently and watching Ben Worley fishing similar flies to this, I think this would probably do a job there as well. It's got the heavy tungsten bead to ensure the fly gets to depth. But again, I've got my wire brush here. I'm going to come in and pull that red dubbing back across the fly. Looks like it's a leech that's just had a hearty meal. So if you stay tuned after I've finished brushing this out, you'll hear Rick and I discussing his bloodbath leech. Hi guys, as promised, the last fly in the series of the exchange across the water with Rick Passac. And it was the bloodbath leech. Now, as soon as I seen this, I thought, oh, this is a fantastic fly. It would work in rivers, it would work in lakes. It doesn't really matter. Leeches are a massive food source to fish, and especially when they're down on the bottom of the lake bed. If you've been fishing in the lakes and you've caught a fish, you might come up with a few leeches. And this bloodbath leech just looked fantastic. So I went with completely different materials from Rick, simply because I didn't have what you had to tie yours, Rick. But I'm pretty pleased with the way it turned out. I've got it here, and I've added a little bit of weight to mine, and I also tied it on a jig hook. So, what's the verdict, Rick?
The only thing I loved it, and I love the idea that you put it on a jig hook to hang that under a bung or whatever, or get that real undulation when you're pulling it. The only thing that I just don't do is I never ever cut my tails, and I know you cut it on an angle and stuff, but I just, if I tie with a dubbing that's too long, I'll pull it. Right, I'll pull it out to make to the length instead. It just for me, I want that real natural long taper right down to nothing, to one little strand on that. Yeah. And so that, but I'm not saying that it won't work. I think it'll nail fish. I mean, it's the silhouette and the color, right, and the movement. But it's just one of my little, I guess it's more of a pet peeve. I don't ever cut tails with anything ever, right? I always pull out as much as I can. I mean, if it's a material that you can't pull, then, well, you don't have a choice, right? But I always say this in my videos, there's nothing in nature that's square.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I get that. But I think I've managed to achieve a little bit of, fairly decent.
Oh yeah,
tail.
no, you did. You did. It's just, for me, the tail is a little too bulky.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I tied it on a jig hook was because it's a fly that's designed to fish near the bottom of the river or the lake bed, and what I didn't want to do was my hook fouling up on weed or anything like that. So I just thought a jig might be a better way to go than the long shank. But really interesting pattern.
I actually do the same pattern on a balanced. So I use a pin out the front, and I use it as a balanced loop, and then hang that under a strike indicator or a bung. And then just let that sit and give it some tweaks, and it'll just do this, and then it'll hang there and it'll do this. Yeah. Right. So, but yeah, leeches are by far my number one fishing fly. I think I fish more leeches in my lakes here in British Columbia than I do anything else. And especially dawn, dusk, and overcast days. Right. Those darker days. The leeches just seem to just you turn the fish right on, right? So,
Yeah.
and when they hit these things, they just hammer them.
Well, we in this country we have a fly called the snake fly, and
I love the snake.
It's a leech pattern pretty much, and it's so effective. I think when they first came out, people were tying them really big, but now mini snakes have grown hugely in popularity, and they're like between 4 and 5 centimeters, and they're super effective. A great fly.
I've tied a few snakes. I've tied a few snakes. Again, watching British fly tyers, I get so many inspirations because we're a bit we're still kind of new to fly fishing in North America compared to the UK. I mean, you guys have been doing this for 500 years. We've been doing it for not even 100, right?
Yeah,
so we're still infants here, and we tie totally differently than the UK. You guys tie more of the interpretive type flies and the dabblers and snatchers and crunchers. Here, a lot of guys will tie a damselfly or a dragonfly or right for that one insect, not the multitude of insects, which I love. Those I call them searching style patterns. But
I think people, and I've always maintained, and I've said it in lots of my videos, fly tying's not the same hobby as fly fishing, and I think fly tyers, they're guilty of thinking that trout have the brain of Einstein. They don't. Their brain is the size of a pea, And I put a little short video up the other day about how I'd lost a fly. I'd got 2 fish on at once, and it snapped my.
I saw that.
And my friend Steve Cullen, he caught that fish not an hour later. So
with the fly hanging out of his mouth.
Yeah, you're not telling me how intelligent fish are, and they can tell the difference between, a damselfly with blue flash in it or red flash. They don't care. I think what's much more important in fishing is the depth and speed of retrieve. If you've got something approximating the profile of what the fish are feeding on, all fine and well, but these people that get wrapped up in the tiniest of detail, and probably, I think we mentioned a couple of weeks back when we were discussing your hover dragon about imitative flies, and I tend not to, I can't tie them. I just tend not to fish them very much because I'd rather have something that was generic. And certainly for competition fishing, we go away a lot, and you've got to find flies that you can tie very quickly because you tend to be tying for the team, or everyone's got to tie these flies, so they've got to be simple and they've got to be quick. And that's my philosophy. Really, it doesn't have to be bang on. Fly tying, on the other hand, you're doing it because you're creating art, I suppose. Some of the guys are creating absolutely amazing flies that I wouldn't even tie on, and they'd be going in a frame. And that's probably what they're designed for, to be perfectly honest.
And that's I have the same philosophy as you do. I tie fishing flies. I don't tie a lot of fancy flies. I tie fishing flies. I want to catch fish, right? So not that I can't, but
Rick, it's been a fantastic exercise. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope the folks at home have enjoyed seeing something from across the pond, something a little bit different. Check out Rick's channel. He ties some amazing stuff, and it's well worth having a look at. And if you were inclined, you could maybe give him a little subscription as well while you were there. Again, Rick, thanks very much. It was a great idea, and I've been very pleased to take part.
Well, thanks for taking part with me. I thoroughly had a great time.
No worries. Take care, Rick. I'll speak to you soon.